All right, let's be real. Stupidity is everywhere. You've seen it at work, in your group chats, maybe even in the mirror. Don't worry, me too. But how do you really know if someone's just having a dumb moment, or if they're living on a permanent vacation in Stupidville? Today, we're breaking down the hilarious signs of a stupid person. And trust me, some of these will make you cringe, laugh, and maybe call yourself out. So, are you on the list? Let's find out. 1. They reject new ideas without trying them. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest, most self-sabotaging behaviors out there. Rejecting new ideas without even trying them. You've seen it happen a million times. Maybe you've even done it yourself. Don't lie, we've all been there. Someone comes to you with an idea, big or small, and without even thinking, your first instinct is, nope, that's not gonna work. You don't ask questions. You don't dig deeper. You don't even let the poor idea breathe for more than 2 seconds before you've declared it a failure. Why? Because rejecting something is easy. Saying no takes 0 effort, 0 vulnerability, and, brace yourself, 0 imagination. Here's where it gets controversial. Most people who shoot down new ideas aren't being logical or practical. They're being scared. Scared of change, scared of failure, or scared of being wrong. Because, let's be honest, if someone else's crazy idea works, it forces you to confront the uncomfortable fact that maybe your way of doing things isn't the best, or worse, that you've been stuck in your comfort zone for far too long. And hey, I'm not coming at you like I'm innocent here. I used to be the queen of shutting things down. I'd roll my eyes at new technology. TikTok, pfft, that's for kids. Fast forward, and now I'm sitting here like, oh cool, everyone else is making millions, and I'm late to the party. Or when my friend suggested starting a podcast together years ago, I said, that's a lot of work. Who's gonna listen to us anyway? Fast forward to today, and their podcast has tens of thousands of listeners. Meanwhile, I'm over here just listening to it like, wow, this could have been us. And here's the deeper truth that stings. Rejecting new ideas doesn't just hold you back, it holds back the people around you too. Imagine sharing something you're genuinely excited about, something you've spent time dreaming about, only to have someone shrug and say, nah, that won't work. It's demoralizing. It's like handing someone a balloon and watching them pop it right in front of you. But let's flip the script for a second. Imagine how different the world would be if the greatest innovators had listened to the "that won't work" crowd. Flying? Humans aren't birds. A personal computer in every home. Who even needs that? Movies on the internet? Sounds dumb. If no one had ever taken a leap, we'd still be sitting in caves, staring at rocks and wondering how fire works. Here's what I've learned. Rejecting new ideas isn't just about the idea itself. It's about the mindset behind it. Saying no without trying is the hallmark of a closed mind. And you know what a closed mind gets you? A small, predictable life. The kind of life where nothing changes, nothing grows, and nothing exciting ever happens. And honestly, I get it. Trying something new is scary. It puts you at risk of failure, of looking stupid, or of realizing you don't have all the answers. But do you know what's even scarier? Staying exactly the same. Waking up one day and realizing you've spent your whole life saying no to the opportunities that could have changed everything. Here's the deep message. Life rewards curiosity. It rewards the people who say, why not, instead of no way. The people who lean into the discomfort of the unknown, even if it means falling on their face a few times. Sure, not every idea is a winner. Some things will flop. But even in failure, you learn, you grow, and you gain stories to tell. And trust me, I've been humbled more times than I can count. Like the time I was so sure that trying yoga was a waste of time. I was convinced it was just stretching in slow motion. But when a friend dragged me to a class, I ended up loving it. It was hard, it was awkward, and yes, I fell over multiple times, but I also felt stronger and more present than I'd ever been. That one experience opened my mind to things I never would have considered before, or the time I almost skipped a business seminar because I thought, ooh, another boring conference. But I went anyway, and one conversation I had with a speaker ended up leading to an opportunity that changed my career, all because I didn't let my knee-jerk skepticism hold me back. So here's my challenge for you. The next time someone pitches you an idea, whether it's a new restaurant, a different way of doing something at work, or even a wild vacation plan, resist the urge to shut it down immediately. Instead, ask yourself, what if this actually works? Because here's the truth, saying yes to new ideas, even the ones that seem a little out there, is how you grow. It's how you stumble onto the things that make life exciting and meaningful. The bottom line? Rejection without reflection is the fastest way to a boring, stagnant life. Stop shutting the door on new ideas before you've even peeked inside. Who knows? You might just find something that changes your life, or at the very least makes it a little more interesting. So the next time someone says, "Hey, let's try this," take a breath, let go of the fear, and give it a shot. Because here's the real question you need to ask yourself. What's the worst that could happen? And what's the best that could happen? You might just surprise yourself. 2. They think being mean makes them smart. Let's dive into this one because it's spicy. You've definitely seen this behavior before, maybe in that one coworker who always has something sarcastic to say, or that friend who thinks tearing other people down is just keeping it real. And let's be honest, social media is full of people who believe being mean equals intelligence. They drop a cutting comment, dunk on someone's opinion, or criticize every little thing, and suddenly they're walking around like they've won a Nobel Prize in being right. Spoiler alert, being a jerk doesn't make you smart, it just makes you a jerk. Here's the controversial truth. A lot of people confuse cynicism with intelligence. They think being skeptical, sarcastic, or flat-out mean makes them look like they're the smartest person in the room. But let me tell you something. Real intelligence doesn't need to scream. It doesn't need to put others down to feel tall. If your version of smart is pointing out everyone else's flaws or making people feel small, then congratulations, you've unlocked the lowest level of emotional maturity. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for healthy debate, constructive criticism, and yes, even sarcasm. I love a good roast as much as the next person. Ask my friends, they know. But there's a fine line between being funny or insightful and just being mean for the sake of it. And a lot of people cross that line without even realizing it. Why? Because meanness is easy. It's cheap. It takes zero skill to say, "That idea is stupid," or "You're doing it wrong." You know what's actually hard? Being kind, offering a thoughtful critique, encouraging someone instead of tearing them down. Here's where it gets personal. I used to think being sarcastic and cutting made me look clever. I was that person who'd sit in the back of a meeting, rolling my eyes at someone's suggestion and muttering under my breath to get a laugh. And yeah, people laughed, but it wasn't because I was smart. It was because they were uncomfortable. One day, a colleague called me out and said, "You know, you could try being part of the solution instead of just pointing out the problem." That hit me like a truck. They were right. I wasn't contributing anything. I was just tearing people down to feel better about myself. And let's talk about how this plays out online. Social media has turned mean behavior into a sport. People dunk on others in the comments for clout, tweet hot takes that are really just thinly veiled insults, and act like being the loudest, meanest person in the thread makes them the winner. But here's the thing. Winning an argument on Twitter doesn't mean you're right. It just means you're loud. Real wisdom doesn't need to crush others to prove a point. Let me give you a real-life example of what being smart and kind looks like. I once pitched a project idea to a mentor, and I'll admit, it wasn't my best work. They could have ripped it apart, and honestly, they had every right to. But instead, they said, "You've got a strong foundation here. What if we tweak this part and rethink this angle?" They turned it into a learning moment instead of a humiliation session. That's what real intelligence looks like, helping others grow instead of cutting them down. Here's the deeper truth. Meanness is a defense mechanism. A lot of people act mean because they're insecure. If they can point out someone else's flaws first, it keeps people from noticing theirs. It's like putting up a wall, but guess what? A wall doesn't make you strong, it just makes you isolated. And here's the real kicker. Kindness takes way more brainpower than meanness. It takes emotional intelligence, patience, and self-awareness to say, "How can I lift this person up?" instead of, "How can I prove I'm better than them?" The people who are truly smart, like world-changing smart, aren't the ones who dominate every conversation or win every argument. They're the ones who listen, collaborate, and make everyone around them better. If you're still not convinced, let me ask you this. Who do you respect more? The person who always has the sharpest insult, or the one who makes you feel heard, supported, and inspired? Exactly. So, here's the deep message. Being mean doesn't make you smart. It just makes you mean. Real intelligence shines brightest when it's paired with kindness and humility. If you want to prove you're the smartest person in the room, don't do it by tearing others down. Do it by building something meaningful, helping someone grow, or offering an insight that actually improves the conversation. Because at the end of the day, no one remembers the person who made the best insult. They remember the person who made them feel like they mattered. So let's all stop confusing cruelty with cleverness. The world has enough critics. Be someone who creates, uplifts, and inspires instead. Trust me, that's the kind of smart that really leaves a mark. 3. They can't admit when they don't know something. Let's talk about one of the biggest red flags of all time. People who just cannot admit when they don't know something. You've met them, I've met them, and maybe, just maybe, you've been them. You ask a question or bring up a topic, and instead of just saying, "I don't know," they'll spin the most convoluted answer, act like an expert, or change the subject entirely. Here's where it gets controversial. People who refuse to admit they don't know something aren't just annoying, they're dangerous. They're the ones who spread misinformation, make bad decisions based on guesswork, and take everyone else down with them. And let's be real, a lot of this comes from ego. Somewhere along the line they decided that admitting ignorance equals weakness, so instead of saying, "Hey, I'm not sure," they double down on their fake knowledge and hope no one notices. But here's the hard truth. Pretending to know something doesn't make you look smart. It makes you look ridiculous, because eventually people do notice, and when they catch on that you're full of it, you lose credibility permanently. I've got a personal story for this one because, oh boy, I've been guilty of it myself. Back in college, I tried to impress a group of friends by talking about a band I pretended to know about. Someone asked, "What's your favorite album of theirs?" And I froze. Instead of just admitting I'd never heard their music, I blurted out, probably their first one. You know, the classic one. Yeah, their first album was an EP that wasn't even on Spotify. They called me out immediately, and I wanted to sink into the floor. Moral of the story? If you don't know, just say so. It's way less embarrassing than getting caught in a lie. But this behavior isn't just limited to harmless stuff like music or pop culture. It gets serious when people pretend to know things in areas where the stakes are high. Like the boss who acts like they have all the answers instead of consulting their team. Or the friend who gives you advice about relationships, health, or finances based on nothing but their own assumptions. One time I listened to someone who swore they knew how to fix my laptop. They ended up wiping my hard drive. Why didn't I just go to a professional? Because they sounded confident. And that's the trap. When people can't admit they don't know, they often sound convincing enough to take others down with them. Let me hit you with the deeper truth. Admitting you don't know something is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows self-awareness, humility, and a willingness to learn. The smartest people I've ever met are the ones who say, "I don't know, let me find out." Because here's the thing, no one expects you to know everything. What people do expect is honesty. When you admit you don't know something, you open the door to curiosity, collaboration, and growth. Take this example. I once worked on a project with a team member who was insanely talented, but also completely unafraid to say, "I'm not familiar with this. Can you show me?" It didn't make me think less of them. In fact, it made me respect them more. They didn't waste time pretending. They spent their energy learning. By the end of the project, they were better at it than I was. Now, let's contrast that with the people who fake it. I've seen folks dig themselves into massive holes because they couldn't just admit, "I don't know." One co-worker I had was infamous for this. They'd nod along in meetings, act like they had everything under control, and then deliver the wrong results because they were too proud to ask for help. It didn't just hurt their reputation, it set the whole team back. But let's be honest, why is it so hard for people to admit they don't know something? For a lot of folks, it comes down to insecurity. They think if they admit ignorance, people will judge them, see them as incompetent, or think less of them. And sure, in some environments, that fear is valid. Some workplaces or social groups do punish vulnerability. But here's the twist. Refusing to admit ignorance only makes things worse. People will judge you harder when they find out you faked it. Here's the deep message. Admitting you don't know something isn't a weakness. It's a superpower. It's the first step to learning, growing, and actually knowing. No one expects you to be a walking encyclopedia, but people do expect you to be honest. When you say, "I don't know," you create an opportunity to learn something new. You invite others to share their knowledge, and you build trust by showing you're human. And here's the kicker. The most successful people in the world are the ones who embrace not knowing. Think about it. Scientists, entrepreneurs, artists, they all start with the same phrase. "I don't know, but let's figure it out." That's how innovation happens. That's how progress happens. That's how growth happens. So, the next time someone asks you something and you don't know the answer, resist the urge to bluff. Just say, "I'm not sure, but I'd love to find out." It's honest. It's refreshing. And honestly, it's a whole lot less stressful than pretending you're an expert in everything. Because at the end of the day, intelligence isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about knowing how to ask the right questions. And the smartest question you can ever ask is this: can you teach me? So, the next time someone asks you something and you don't know the answer, resist the urge to bluff. Just say, "I'm not sure, but I'd love to find out." It's honest, it's refreshing, and honestly, it's a whole lot less stressful than pretending you're an expert in everything. Because at the end of the day, intelligence isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about knowing how to ask the right questions. And the smartest question you can ever ask is this: can you teach me? 4. They always have to win an argument. Oh, this one's a classic. You know the type, the person who cannot let an argument go until they've won. And by won, I mean they've either shouted the loudest, exhausted you into submission, or pulled out some obscure fact from 2008 to prove their point. It's not about finding common ground or even reaching the truth. It's about winning. Because in their mind, losing an argument means losing their worth as a person. Here's where it gets controversial. People who always need to win an argument aren't just stubborn, they're insecure. Yeah, I said it. If you can't walk away from a discussion without having the last word, it's not a sign of strength or intelligence. It's a neon sign flashing, "I'm terrified of being wrong," and hey, I get it. No one likes being wrong. But if your entire personality revolves around needing to be right all the time, congratulations, you're not debating, you're just fighting with reality. Let me hit you with a personal experience because, oh boy, I've been on both sides of this. I used to be that person who had to win every argument, even over the smallest things. One time, I spent 30 minutes arguing with a friend about whether a movie was released in 2003 or 2004. 30 minutes. Neither of us had even seen the movie recently. We were literally arguing over a Googleable fact. But instead of just saying, "You know what, let's look it up," I dug my heels in because admitting I was wrong felt like losing some imaginary battle. Spoiler alert, I was wrong, and instead of proving how smart I was, I just looked ridiculous. But let's talk about the real cost of always needing to win an argument. It ruins relationships. When you're so focused on being right, you stop listening. You stop respecting the other person. You start treating every conversation like a competition instead of an opportunity to connect. I've seen friendships fall apart, family dinners turn into battlefields, and relationships crumble because one or both people refuse to let go of their ego long enough to say, "You know what? Maybe you're right," or maybe it doesn't even matter. And here's where it gets even messier. Sometimes people don't even believe their own argument. They just keep going because they don't want to back down. You ever been in a debate where halfway through you realize you're wrong but you keep arguing anyway? Yeah, that's your ego talking. It's like, if I admit defeat now, I'll lose face. But here's the reality. Dragging an argument out when you know you're wrong doesn't make you look strong. It makes you look desperate. Here's another personal story. I once got into a heated debate with a coworker about the best way to approach a project. I was so convinced my way was better that I didn't even hear their suggestions. I interrupted, dismissed their ideas, and basically bulldozed through the entire conversation. You know what happened? We went with my plan, and it completely flopped. If I had just swallowed my pride and actually listened to their perspective, we could have avoided the mess altogether. That experience taught me a valuable lesson. Winning an argument isn't worth it if it means losing respect, trust, or a better solution. Here's the deeper truth. Needing to win every argument isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign of fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of looking weak, or fear of losing control. But guess what? Admitting you're wrong doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It shows that you're confident enough to prioritize truth and connection over your own ego. Let me tell you about someone who changed my perspective on this. I once had a mentor who, in the middle of a debate, would literally stop and say, "You know what? I hadn't thought of it that way. You might be right." The first time I saw this, I was shocked. I was like, wait, you can just admit someone else has a point and move on. And here's the wild part. It didn't make me think less of them. It made me respect them more. Because instead of fighting to win, they were fighting to understand. Here's where I want to drop the deep message. You don't have to win every argument to win at life. In fact, the most successful, wise, and emotionally intelligent people know when to let go. They know that a discussion isn't about defeating the other person. It's about learning, growing, and finding common ground. Think about it. When was the last time you actually changed someone's mind by arguing them into submission? Probably never, because people don't respond to aggression or dominance. They respond to empathy, curiosity, and understanding. If you approach a disagreement with humility and an open mind, you're way more likely to reach a resolution that benefits everyone. So, here's my challenge to you. The next time you're in an argument, ask yourself, what's more important, being right or being kind? Proving my point or preserving this relationship? Because trust me, winning every argument isn't going to make your life better. It's just going to make you exhausting to be around. And if you're someone who's always on the receiving end of these must-win debaters, here's my advice. Don't engage. Sometimes the best way to win is to not play their game at all. Smile, nod, and let them have their hollow victory. You've got better things to do than wrestle with someone else's ego. At the end of the day, the strongest, smartest people aren't the ones who argue the loudest. They're the ones who listen, learn, and know when to walk away. Because real wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about knowing that sometimes the best answer is silence. 5. They think they're the main character of every story. The main character syndrome. You've probably heard the term, but if not, let me break it down. These are the people who walk into every situation assuming the spotlight is already on them. They act like the world is their movie, everyone else is an extra, and your job is to clap while they monologue. And hey, confidence is great, but when it tips into everything revolves around me territory, it's no longer confidence. It's just narcissism in a cute outfit. Here's where it gets controversial. People who think they're the main character aren't just annoying, they're completely out of touch with reality. Newsflash, life is not a Disney movie and you're not the chosen one. The world does not bend itself around your drama, your ambitions, or your opinions. But here's the catch. This mindset isn't just irritating, it's harmful. It blinds people to the needs, struggles, and perspectives of others. And honestly, isn't that the exact opposite of what a hero is supposed to do? Let's break it down. These are the folks who hijack every group conversation and steer it back to their own life. Got a problem? They've got a bigger one. Achieved something great? Oh, they've done something better. Even if you're just venting about your day, they'll somehow turn it into, well, you think you've got it bad. It's exhausting. Here's a personal experience to illustrate. I once had a friend, let's call them Jamie, who couldn't let anyone else have a moment. If someone shared a success, Jamie had to top it. If someone shared a struggle, Jamie would one-up their pain. One time during a dinner party, another friend announced they'd just gotten a promotion after months of hard work. Before anyone could even congratulate them, Jamie chimed in with, "That's cool, but when I got my last promotion, it was way more intense because I had to deal with XYZ. The energy in the room just plummeted. What should have been a celebration became a weird competition, and it wasn't the first time Jamie pulled this stunt. But here's the deeper issue. People with main character syndrome aren't really confident. They're insecure. Their need to center themselves in every story comes from a fear of being irrelevant, overlooked, or forgotten. And ironically, by making everything about them, they alienate the people who might have cared about them the most. It's like they're trying so hard to be seen that they end up invisible. Now, I'll admit, I've fallen into this trap myself. There was a time when I thought sharing my story in every conversation was the best way to connect with people. Someone would say, "I'm feeling really anxious about this meeting," and I'd jump in with, "Oh yeah, I've been there. Let me tell you about this one time when..." I thought I was being relatable, but what I was really doing was taking the focus away from them. It wasn't about connecting, it was about my ego. Let me tell you when it hit me. A close friend pulled me aside after a conversation and said, "You know, sometimes I just need you to listen, not tell your own story." Oof, it stung, but they were right. I was so busy being the main character that I forgot to just be present. Here's where we bring the deep message. Life isn't a solo performance. It's an ensemble cast. Everyone you meet has their own story, their own struggles, and their own triumphs. When you act like the main character all the time, you miss out on the beauty of those stories. You miss out on connection. And honestly, being the main character 24/7 is exhausting. You're constantly performing, constantly trying to be the most interesting, the most accomplished, the most everything. But here's the plot twist. You don't need to be the main character to matter. Sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is step back and let someone else shine. Be the supporting character who lifts others up, the friend who listens, the teammate who collaborates. I've seen this transformation happen, and it's incredible. One of my co-workers, who used to dominate every meeting with their ideas, started intentionally stepping back and asking others for their input. At first, it felt forced, but over time, they realized that when they made space for others, the entire team became stronger. They didn't lose respect by stepping back. They earned it. Here's the real truth. The world doesn't need more main characters. It needs more humans. People who are willing to listen, learn, and share the spotlight. Because when you stop thinking the world revolves around you, you start noticing how much richer, deeper, and more meaningful life becomes. So, here's my challenge to you. Next time you're in a conversation, resist the urge to steer it back to yourself. Let someone else be the main character for a moment. Celebrate their victories, support their struggles, and just listen. You might be surprised at how much more rewarding it is to play a supporting role. And hey, if you're someone who's always dealing with a main character in your life, remember this: you don't have to compete. Let them have their moment. It doesn't take anything away from you, because at the end of the day, true confidence isn't about being the star of the show. It's about knowing your worth, whether you're in the spotlight or not. After all, the best stories aren't the ones where one person dominates. They're the ones where everyone gets to play a part. So maybe, just maybe, the best thing you can do is share the stage. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Look, we've all been guilty of at least one of these things at some point. Nobody's perfect. But the point isn't to beat ourselves up or point fingers. It's to take a step back, laugh a little, and maybe ask, am I doing this? Could I be better? Growth starts with self-awareness, and if we can't laugh at ourselves along the way, what's the point, right? Here's the deeper takeaway. Being smart isn't about never making mistakes or always being right. It's about being open to new ideas, open to admitting when you're wrong, and open to stepping out of the spotlight so someone else can shine. The smartest, most fulfilled people I've ever met are the ones who don't take themselves too seriously, but take the world and the people around them seriously. So whether you saw yourself in some of these points or just thought about that one person, you know the one, let's make a pact. Less ego, more empathy, less me, and more curiosity about the world and others. Because life's way more interesting when we're not the only star of the show. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a gentle or not so gentle reminder. And hey, drop a comment below. What's a sign of a stupid person that I missed? Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about being better. See you in the next one. Stay curious, stay kind, and stay honest. Peace.